By the time this is over, you are going to yawn. You don't believe me yet, but the urge is already being planted, quietly, just by the idea of it. Maybe you can feel a small tightness in your jaw right now. Maybe you are already fighting it. Here's the strange part. You did not decide to feel that. Nobody yawned at you. You only thought about yawning, and your body began to obey. So what is actually happening here? Why does something as small as a word, a picture, or a stranger across a room reach inside you and pull the very same response out of your body? The answer runs much deeper than being tired. It runs all the way back to how your brain decides who counts as one of its own. Let's start by separating two things that look identical, but are not. There is the yawn you do alone. You wake up, you stretch, and your jaw cracks open all by itself. Scientists call this spontaneous yawning, and almost every animal with a backbone does it. Fish do it, birds do it, snakes do it. An unborn baby does it in the womb, months before it has ever seen another face. This kind of yawn is ancient and automatic, and it has nothing to do with anybody else. Then there is the other kind, the yawn you catch. Someone near you opens their mouth, and a few seconds later, without ever choosing to, you do exactly the same thing. This is contagious yawning, and it is a completely different creature. Only a small handful of deeply social species do it at all, and that single fact is the first clue to the whole mystery. For a long time, nobody studied yawning seriously. It seemed too silly to bother with. Then a psychologist named Robert Provine decided to actually look, and what he found was quietly unsettling. He discovered that contagious yawning is almost impossible to switch off. You can see a yawn, hear a yawn, read the word yawn, or simply picture one in your mind, and the trigger fires anyway. In his studies, around half of the people exposed to yawning yawned themselves within about 5 minutes. And if you clench your jaw and try to resist, the feeling very often just builds and builds until it leaks out of you regardless. It does not even need your eyes. Contagious yawning has been reported in people who were born blind, set off by nothing more than the sound of a yawn down a telephone line. You do not have to see anything at all for the door to swing open. A thought, a sound, a single written word can reach into a private physical act and switch it on. There may be no other behavior in the human body quite like it. Sit with how odd that really is. Your body has a door, and other people are holding the key. You get to decide what you say. You get to decide where you look, and whether you smile, and whether you stay or leave. But this one small action can be switched on inside you from the outside, by someone who is not even touching you, by a stranger, by a cartoon, by a single sentence on a screen. So why on earth would evolution build a door like that? Why hand other people the key to the inside of you? The most powerful clue came from two researchers named Ivan Norcia and Elisabetta Palagi. For a whole year, they quietly watched people yawn. On trains, at dinner tables, in waiting rooms and offices, they recorded who caught a yawn, and crucially, who they caught it from. And buried in all that data, they found something beautiful. The thing that best predicted whether you would catch someone's yawn was not how tired you were. It was not how loud the yawn was, or how close you happened to be sitting. It was how much you loved them. The closer the bond, the more contagious the yawn. People caught yawns most easily from their own family, then from close friends, then, more weakly, from acquaintances, and least of all, barely at all, from total strangers. The yawn was not spreading at random through the room. It was traveling along the invisible lines of connection between people, and the strength of each line decided whether the yawn could jump across it. This points to something remarkable. Contagious yawning appears to be tangled up with empathy itself, your brain's quiet ability to slip, just for a moment, into the state of another person. When you catch a yawn, in a tiny and completely automatic way, you are mirroring someone else. For a second, your nervous system runs a copy of theirs. And the way it grows in us backs this up. Babies do not catch yawns. The spontaneous kind is there from the very first day, but the contagious kind does not switch on until a child is around 4 or 5 years old. That is the exact window when a young brain is learning one of the hardest lessons of being human, that other people have their own minds, their own feelings, their own hidden inner worlds. The contagious yawn arrives hand in hand with empathy, almost as if they are two faces of the same new ability. There is one more piece that fits the pattern. Researchers studying children on the autism spectrum, whose brains process social signals in a different way, found that they were far less likely to catch a yawn from others. Something similar shows up in traits linked to lower empathy. The less your brain automatically tunes itself to other people, the quieter this strange little echo becomes inside you. A psychologist named Stephen Plattick pushed on this from another direction. He found that the people most prone to catching a yawn also tended to score highest on measures of empathy and on the simple ability to imagine themselves inside someone else's situation. So the yawn starts to look less like a reflex and more like a readout, a quiet little gauge of how easily your mind slips into other minds. Some people are almost helplessly contagious. Others barely catch a yawn at all. And where you sit on that scale may say something real about how your brain is wired for other people. So the picture seems clear. Contagious yawning is a hidden marker of connection. But here a careful mind has to stop and ask a harder question. Is that really the whole story? Because not every scientist agrees. A researcher named Andrew Gallup put forward a very different idea. What if a yawn is not about feelings at all, but about temperature? When you yawn, you drag in a deep rush of cool air and stretch the muscles all around your skull. And this may help to cool your brain down, like a small fan switching on inside your head. In this view, a contagious yawn could be a kind of group thermostat. One overheating, sluggish brain in a room yawns, and the signal nudges the others to cool themselves too, keeping the whole group sharp and awake at the same time. It is a useful reminder that even something this familiar is still being argued over, and the real answer may turn out to be a blend of both, a signal that is partly about the mind and partly about the body. But whichever way you lean, the most haunting evidence of all comes from outside our own species. Because you are not the only animal that can catch a yawn from you. Chimpanzees catch yawns from other chimpanzees they know. Wolves do it. Even some birds appear to do it. And in one striking line of research, dogs were shown a person yawning, and many of them yawned right back, especially when the yawn came from their own owner rather than from a stranger. Think about what that means. Your dog, dozing at your feet, may be quietly tuned to you on a channel you never knew was open. The very same channel that carries a yawn from a mother to her child can stretch all the way across the gap between two completely different species. And it may do far more than simply signal closeness. In some social animals, a caught yawn seems to ripple straight into action. Watch a pack of wolves, and a yawn passing from one animal to the next can be followed by the whole group rising, stretching, and moving off together, almost as if the yawn were a soft, wordless command to do the next thing as one. The yawn does not only say, "I am like you," it can quietly pull a scattered group into a single shared rhythm. Lions do something similar. After a yawn spreads through a resting pride, the big cats often rise and move almost in unison, their actions stitched together by a signal that none of them ever chose to send. There is even something tender hidden inside it. A yawn leaves you briefly helpless. Your eyes water, your mouth stretches wide, and for just a moment, you are unguarded. To catch one from someone, and to give one back, is in its own small way an act of trust, the kind of thing that passes most easily between creatures who already feel safe in each other's company. So step back and look at what this really is. A yawn feels like nothing, a reflex, a sign of a long meeting or a boring afternoon. But contagious yawning may be one of the oldest and quietest tools your brain owns for staying in sync with the creatures it cares about. Long before language, long before there were words for us and them, social animals needed some way to stay together, to share a single state, to grow tired at the same time, to move and rest as one body made of many. And one of the ways they found was to let a single small action ripple, silently and unstoppably, through the whole group. That ripple is still running through you today. Every time you catch a yawn, your brain is quietly answering a question it never admits it is asking. Is this one of mine? And the people whose yawns you simply cannot help but catch are the ones it has already decided to keep close. By now, you have almost certainly felt it. The tightness in the jaw, the slow, deep breath that wants to rise up whether you allow it or not. I told you at the very start that you were going to yawn. And now that you have, you know that it was never really about being tired at all. It was your brain reaching quietly outward to feel for everyone you are still connected to.